Good morning, FlossTube. This is Saturday, the 29th of August. My name is Janine McGowan, and I design cross-stitch charts under the name of The Blue Flower. Lovely to be with you this morning, as it were, or whenever you happen to be watching. And I wanted to get started by thanking everyone for all the great comments, particularly off the last FlossTube, about joy. It was really lifting to read all of those, particularly during these extra heavy news weeks the last few weeks, so it's been very good to have some of that joy bubbling through my daily routine to counteract some of that heaviness. So thank you all. Also, thank you for the magnificent list of stitches that you have sent through. I hadn't even heard of so many of them, and I think I got them all written down. So it was the rice stitch, the queen stitch, the fly stitch, the chain stitch, bullion knots, long arm cross stitch, which someone used for house roofing. I think that's brilliant. Waffle stitch, square stitch, brick stitch, spiderweb roses, lazy daisy, standish stitch, back stitch, it's like a tongue twister, herringbone stitch, and Norwich stitch. I have tried a couple of those, but a lot of them I am very excited to look into. So if I start adding lots of specialty stitches to designs going forward, I'm going to blame all of you, and you'll know that it's your fault. So several people did also mention the turkey stitch, and I have a winner on the drawing for that, so I will announce that a little bit further along. And yeah, on the subject of the specialty stitches, though, I wanted to talk about a piece that I did several years ago, and it's called the Wyndham Sampler. I was in New Zealand at the time, and I had persuaded a colleague to drive me to a cross-stitch shop in New Zealand, which was absolutely lovely. A little Victorian house that had been moved and converted into a cross-stitch shop. But because I wasn't messing around with driving on the alternate side of the road, he was kind enough to take me there and patient enough to wait while I looked at everything. But I got a copy of that stitch as a memorial, and this is a copy of the cover picture. It's in the Wyndham Historical Society Museum in New Zealand, although you can certainly get it in US shops as well. It's not specific to New Zealand. It was something that I did, but if you can see, there are these two big elements here, this thistle and this sort of stylized rose with a blue flower. These are not cross stitches. These are done mostly with the leaves filled in stem stitch, which is something I hadn't done. Additionally, when you get the chart pages for those areas, you get a photograph of the original showing kind of the area that's covered and the design the way that it should look. And there's a blank space in the chart. So, you know, it was for the first time having to actually, with nothing to guide me other than, hey, there's a picture, draw these wild shapes, and I was so thoroughly intimidated. But I got started with the colors because I wasn't 100% on board with the color scheme as it was. I mean, it's obviously great, but I wanted to change it up just a little bit. And so I would go to Acorns and Threads and I would pull some different yellows, some different greens, some different this, and I would ask Janine at Acorns and Threads, well, could I maybe use these instead? And she would so patiently tell me over and over, there are no cross-stitch beliefs. You can change the colors. You can do whatever you want. So my career of being drunk with power was launched then and there because there are no cross-stitch beliefs and I can change the colors. So without further ado, it's a big girl, this one. Oh, here is my version of the Wyndham Sampler. It was a lot of fun to stitch, and I didn't, other than changing the colors, I don't think I changed anything on this one. But I started with this big center motif, and then I did borders, and I did all the things, and I skipped these two things. I went charging down the side. We moved in the middle. I'm still going. I got to about here, and then I was starting to come back up, realizing I am going to have to deal with those specialty stitches, and I don't know what to do. So I kind of stopped. I did other projects for the first time. I had been a monogamous stitcher until then, but I was suddenly finding other things that I really needed to do, and eventually crept up around here. I love these, by the way, with the ducks and the fountain. I got to here, And I finally did some videos, started learning how to do the stem stitch. I got comfortable with making the shapes, and then I tell you, I loved it. I loved filling in those leaves. I loved making the outlines, and I think it came out really beautifully. We'll see if we can get a good close-up of this one to show, because it really shows off the slight variegation in the thread. It just looks extra fun, and I'm really, really proud of it. So that's the New Zealand sampler and my venture into specialty stitches, but I'll be venturing again here with Hands Across the Sea and this one that's being given away. So hopefully soon I'll have more to show. On to stitching in action. This week's new contribution is Night Walk Down from Nellie Vasquez, and I think I really like what she's done. I like the way that she adjusted the skin tone. I think she's made it personal and beautiful, and I think it's great. So thank you, Nellie, for sharing that with us. Now, as far as what I'm stitching, I'm going to have to be careful here because a cat has just joined me. So to start blocking things that were lined up for FlossTube. I am almost done with Maria Casson. It's so close. I've finished all of the border. I think I have one flower center to stitch. I have the border on this element to stitch, one line of color in this flower here, and then the over one verse. So I can almost taste the finish. I am so enjoying this. I love the colors. It's not showing terribly well, and if I get a chance I might take a photograph to put in so you can see it better. But that has been just such a delight, and I find that when I'm working on it, I really feel Cassie being here. I almost, want to put my hand down to touch her head, and she will be with me every time I see that. So by the next FlossTube, I will have finished, ideally, and potentially sent it off. So I'll be sure and take a photograph before I send it off for finishing. But I'm very excited to have that one back and framed and on the wall. I'm really looking forward to that. Now, I have not been getting much stitching, and the reason that's not done is because I've been in the midst of product release. You've seen the two new releases. I'll just show them again very briefly. This is Halloween Parade, the little pillow with all the animals in their Halloween costumes, or it's a little slouchy because we discussed how I have learning to do on stuffing things, but that will be out at shops, and it will be up on the website shortly. The other one was the acorns. So again, all of these are going out to shops this weekend. That's what I'm doing, is packing. And then just a little bit of word about floss. Fabric. Everybody is having difficulty getting fabric, so if you want, obviously the information for those will include what they're stitched on, but if you want a different fabric, or you don't want to wait for that particular fabric, or you're not comfortable making the change yourself, your shop is a fabulous resource. They will have lots of ability to point you in a different direction to try for a fabric that might be more immediately available, or just something that you might enjoy that's a little bit different. So I encourage you to tap into that marvelous resource of shop owners and see where it takes you. Now, just a word about my process. Again, I don't sell printed charts except to shops, brick and mortar shops, and online shops. So if you want to get a printed copy, that will only be available for shops, and that's for the next couple of months. After the next set of releases later in the probably November, early winter area, then I will make PDFs of these releases available online, which means that right now, since I've done new releases, I will make available this weekend the PDF of my summer release available online. And this is called Butterfly Garden. It was released, I think, in May, and it was so much fun. I got to stitch this one myself, mostly because I was late again, but I was stitching it right around market, and I was actually pleased. It went together pretty quickly because you just do sort of one element at a time, one butterfly, one flower. And it went on, and I had to do the framing myself again in the midst of COVID lockdowns and quarantines. So it's not the best, but I learned, and I'm pleased that I learned and made progress. So this one to me was meant to be the idea of looking out a window at a beautiful butterfly garden, because obviously I don't go out, so I look out at things. And then we did quarantine and everyone was looking out at things, but I had I had crammed my butterfly window with butterflies from all over the world, not paying any attention to where they actually live, but it was fun for me. So that PDF will be going up on the website hopefully this weekend, and you can still always get a printed chart from your local or online needlework shop. And that's what I'm doing. Stash spotlight for this week. I have a couple of things to highlight. The first two are in many ways different, but rather complementary. First is Bendy Stitchy's You're Okay, I Guess. I love this. And Michelle, Bendy Stitchy, was actually at market in the room with me last year, and I would see people from where I was sitting come into the room and sort of do a double take every time they saw that, because it's a very traditional form and yet this kind of cheeky message. So I think after Maria Casson, I might do a little small one like this, just to probably put it in my husband's office. He'll enjoy that. Although I'm also tempted by this one, Hearts and Flowers by Carriage Samplings. And I think the thing I love most about it, it is fun and traditional, not very big, but is the verse, "When in love I do commence, may it be with a man of sense." And I think that's obviously something that I would care about. So maybe my husband will get two for his office. They're both pretty small. I think I could knock them out in not very much time, and I think that would be a fun pair to put up, just to make a change and have a smaller project. So I will look forward to that. The other thing, though, is I have had a chart. Of course, it's a big chart. I've had a chart in my stash for a while because I had seen it on the attic. This is previous to when the team at the attic was doing floss tubes, but someone else had been in the store and had been showing various things. And I think it might have been Gary Parr. I'm trying to remember. It might have been at an event at the attic, but they were showing what Jean Lee was stitching on, and she had done a conversion for it, and it was so beautiful. Now it's difficult to get a good photograph and to see it properly, but what I had seen her stitching on was one of these corner elements with the urn and the flowers, and the colors she had chosen were stunning. So I bought the chart, and this was a year or two ago, and thought, you know, I'll pull some colors like that. Well, I didn't get around to pulling colors like that, and I was still thinking of it, but never really getting it done. And then the attic started doing their floss tubes, and it brought it back to the corner of my mind. So as a kind of a pre-birthday treat, I got the silk conversion from the attic, the one that Jean Lee had used that I thought was so beautiful. And oh, I mean, look at these silks. They're just stunning. All different brands. Some I'd never heard of. Gumnuts I've never used. And then obviously lots of Gloriana and Thread Gatherer. But oh, I can't wait. So I'll have to decide whether I'm going to start those two little ones, or maybe possibly when the Cassie sampler is done, launch into this bigger one as well. We'll see. The world around. I actually forgot to do this last time, and I had something good too. So I'm doing it this time. The thing that I wanted to talk about this time is a plant called Gaura, and I don't know if I'm saying that properly. I had seen it in plant catalogs when I lived in Portland, but had never seen it in gardens. Not that it wasn't there, I just hadn't seen it, and had never grown it. And they described probably a particular species of it, but as looking like whirling butterflies. And then when we were here, I was at the nursery about a year ago, and saw this plant Gaura, and it wasn't blooming, but seems to do well here. So I thought, well, let's get one of those. It's good for pollinators. And so we put one in, and it is thriving, which of course makes it wonderful. I'm a plant killer, so anything that can survive me is obviously the right plant in the right place. But the thing that I have loved most, it does really almost look like butterflies on these thin waving stems. It is packed with bees all the time, from the moment the sun sort of opens those flowers to when it goes down. There are bees all over that, and I got a good close-up eventually of a bee with just, I mean, saddlebags of food carrying around. They're just loaded, so I might see if we put in a couple more of those, because they seem to be really feeding the bees, which we want to keep doing. So that's my world around, is this Gaura plant. If anyone knows how to pronounce it, I would love to know, because I have a feeling I'm not quite doing it right. All right, questions from viewers. Wrapping up for Deb, the rest of the squirrels, I have spring and winter. So I'm going to start with spring, which I have right here. And the idea with this one was as though they were sort of loosely strawberry plant acorns. And so he's watering those, he's got his overalls on, his little basket of flowers, watering can, the whole bit. So that one was fun. It was a very lacy kind of a border feeling for me on that one. Let's see if we can get you just a little bit closer to see. That should be pretty good. All right, then to go with that one, because I do the little pillows, that one having felt Victorian and lacy and proper, for some reason, the little acorn pillow that I designed to go with it ended up with these just mad swirly, I don't know, in the design, but I loved the way it was coming out, so I kept it. And obviously tiny squirrels and little acorns and all sorts of fun stuff. So that's spring squirrel and acorn pillow. And then winter here. It's, again, always hard to see. I think I'm going to get a better light fairly soon, so we'll be able to tell colors of things a little better. But it's got sort of a winter tree and little winter acorn pillows. The squirrel's very blue and gray, wintry colors. So that's that one. And I love this little wagon, this like a feather tree almost in it, and all the different colors. And then for the acorn pillow to go with that, it was as though it were a little acorn snowflake for me. And you don't get to see the beautiful backs always. Jolynn at Acorns and Threads finishes these for me, and it's always so much fun when I get it back and I get to see what color she's done and all of that. So I really, really love that. All right. Questions. Now I have a question. I am actually a little bit ahead for once. I'm trying to get better. I am getting better. I'm making progress, but getting ahead of designing versus needing models. So what that means is I could actually use a couple of new model stitchers, because the ones that I normally use are either already stitching for me or are about to start being asked to stitch again. So if you have done model stitching, if you like doing model stitching, if you want to get in contact with me, please just drop me a message. I do all the models pretty much exclusively on 40 count linen, so if you don't like stitching on 40 count linen, it might not be a good fit, but if you are interested, just maybe drop me a line with what you like, what kinds of things you like to stitch, and hopefully I can come up with a model that would be enjoyable for you. And if that's something you're interested in, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. All right. Best thing this week is a winner. There's a winner for the giveaway. And just to remind everyone, the giveaway is this book, Samplers from the Victoria and Albert Museum, kind of fun, and a copy of Jane Finnis from Hands Across the Sea sampler with that specialty, turkey stitch right here. It's a little hard to see in the glass, but it's a little fluffy turkey stitch. The winner of that one is Deanna Ellett, and her comment was, I would like to stitch the Hands Across the Sea sampler. Never heard of the turkey stitch, but would love to learn. Your puppy is adorable, as are your acorn patterns. Thanks for sharing, and happy stitching. Thank you, Deanna. Congratulations. And if you can just send me a message with your info, I'll get that in the mail for you. So thank you all very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I wish it was a little bit more in real time in person, but someday we'll get there. And for right now, happy stitching. I'll put some puppy video at the end, and I am off to fold charts for the rest of the weekend. Oh, also, no FlossTube in 2 weeks because it is my birthday weekend, and I'm very much hoping to just stitch, maybe on the 3 potential new projects that I'm thinking of starting. So I will see you in a month. In the meantime, I hope you all are staying safe and healthy, and happy stitching. Goodbye.